Good morning, greetings, friends, and welcome to The Bright Side, your nutritional program dedicated to the understanding of the vast world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. I'm your host, Pharmacist Ben, nutritional pharmacist from Boulder, Colorado. I use nutritional supplements where other healthcare practitioners use toxic pharmaceutical drugs and sometimes deadly medical procedures. If you suspect that there are natural nutritional roads to your vitality and health and well-being, and to addressing your health challenges, whatever they may be, but you don't know where to begin, you have come to the right place. As you listen to The Bright Side every day, you are more and more in control of your body, you are more and more knowledgeable, and you know you can overcome any health challenge. That is why we are here every day on The Bright Side, helping clear up the sometimes confusing world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. Over the last 33 years of practicing pharmacy, I have seen drug-free recoveries from diabetes, hypertension, obesity, skin diseases like acne, psoriasis, eczema, rosacea, digestive ailments, autoimmune issues of all kinds, recoveries that by the standards of modern medicine can only be called a miracle, but what is in the world of the body, what is in the world of biology, standard operating procedure. Because the human biological system is a healing system, it's a regenerating system. It is designed divinely to heal and renew itself on a moment-to-moment basis, and while some folks may call that healing, renewing, regenerating system a miracle, it really is just the way the body works. If you have questions about health, nutrition, prescription drugs, if you want to wean yourself off your meds and get on a good nutritional supplement program, we're here for you on The Bright Side. 844-236-6010 is our number, 844-236-6010. If you have questions about the longevity products, if you have a common or success story you'd like to share, if you have a health challenge you or a loved one is dealing with, if you want to wean yourself off your meds and get on a good nutritional supplement program, 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll get your calls in our second segment today. We have a guest coming up at the bottom of the hour, G.P. Walsh. Really fascinating guy. Speaker, storyteller, spiritual guide. He's got some really cool things to say about what he calls the Tao of Allowing. That's the title of his book, The Tao of Allowing. GP is just a fascinating human being. We're going to talk to him at the bottom of the hour about health, about illusion, about meditation, about all the different aspects of being healthy on all the levels, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. We'll get your calls in our next segment. 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com, or call 866-735-2470. And check out our skin health products at truthtreatments.com and our nutritional supplements at truthnnourishment.com. Truthnnourishment.com. Thank you to Robert Lundgren for setting that up for me. And then truthtreatments.com. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, water, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products. Truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. All right, we'll get to your calls in our next segment. GP Walsh at the bottom of the hour. I want to continue talking a little bit about the stress response, its connection to hormones, particularly cortisol and estrogen. Cortisol, everybody knows, or not everybody, but people who know about how stress works or who have studied stress a little bit know about cortisol, but estrogen does not get the recognition it deserves as part of the stress response. And this is why women are more prone towards diseases, diseases. Diseases are, by definition, part of the stress response. Dis-ease, it's right there in the word. You're out of ease. There's some ease issue. Too much stress is obviously not a comfortable thing. Too much stress is obviously not a healthy thing. But worst of all, too much stress is going to make you fat. If you are trying to lose weight and you're watching your calories and you're only eating a little bit and you're fasting and you're only eating low-calorie foods and you're doing the 10 good foods and staying away from the bad foods, etc., but you're not losing the weight, guaranteed your body is in a protective mode. Fat itself represents protection, especially in the belly area. And by the way, the fat in the belly area is a major indicator of health. I was just reading this. Where is this here? Women's deep belly fat more strongly linked to diabetes and cardiovascular disease. This is a study from Uppsala University, published in the journal Nature Medicine. This is a study over 325,000 participants. They show the deep belly fat. This is called visceral fat. It covers the viscera, all the organs inside the body. Deep belly fat is a major contributing risk factor for diabetes and heart disease. And guess what? Almost everybody has this problem. I mean, It's probably 99.999% of people have this problem of deep belly fat once they reach a certain age. And you'll notice it happens starting around in your 30s usually, or late 20s for most people. Now, some people it's even earlier, but certainly by the time you're 30 or 35 or 40, you've got much more deep belly fat than you had when you were 18 or 20. Almost everybody. It's universal. What is that about? It's about changes in how the body's handling sugar. It's about changes in the body or problems at the level of the stress response. And you probably throw in digestive problems too. Guess what? That's the triangle of disease. If you're trying to lose weight and you just can't, you're dealing with a stress response. Now, it's true that long-term chronic stress response, when I say the stress response, I mean long-term chronic stress response. The way stress is supposed to occur, you get stressed out and then you relax. Why zebras don't get ulcers. We talked about that a lot on the show. Why zebras don't get ulcers is a classic book about the stress response. It talks about how in the wild, stress response is instantaneous and goes away. It goes up and then it goes down. It's a quick thing. Only human beings have long-term chronic stress. This is a strictly human condition because we worry and we have fear and we can predict the future. All of this leads to long-term problems with stress that animals typically don't have. Why zebras don't get ulcers. It's kind of a little bit of a technical book, but it's definitely a fascinating read if you're interested in the stress response. And one of the classic aspects of a long-term chronically activated stress response system is fatty deposits, especially in the belly. And if you can't lose the weight, guaranteed that you're dealing with this kind of problem. Now, it's true that long-term chronic stress response reduces thyroid function. This is another major point. This is the jumping off point. This is how the triangle of disease leads to all chronic illnesses. It's because at the level of stress, long-term chronic stress, the next step up is hypothyroidism. The next step up is a suppression in the thyroid. Long-term chronic stress response chemistry will lower thyroid functioning. And that's where you get all the problems, including the belly fat. And FYI, the cholesterol. Elevated cholesterol goes hand in hand with hypothyroidism, which goes hand in hand with too much cortisol and stress response, which follows lots of things, including digestion and blood sugar issues. The stress response is an evolutionary strategy for getting us out of a jam. And like all biochemistry or all biochemical phenomena, it's controlled by hormones. And the interesting thing about the hormonal connection to the stress response is it's reversible. It goes both ways. It goes from body to brain, and it goes from brain to body. It goes in two directions. That's so important. The brain perceives a stress, and then this is what's supposed to happen. Sees a lion or a tiger, or in our case, a police siren, say, whatever it is, whatever the brain sees and perceives it as a stress, and boom, you get stress chemistry. Now, if the stress is long-term, the stress chemistry is a little different. When the stress is short, like quick acting, adrenaline is the major stress hormone. But over the course of a lot of stress, long-term stress, chronic stress, cortisol is the hormone. But here's what's interesting. When the brain will perceive a stress and then stress hormones will kick in. But if stress hormones are high, the brain will read the stress hormones as if that was a stress. It goes both ways. When the hormones of stress are released in the brain, or when the hormones of stress are released in the body, the brain is going to make up a reason. So if you're holding your body a certain way, say your head is down, or say your muscles are contracted, or say your breathing is shallow, the brain will read the hormones associated with the shallow breathing, associated with the body posture, as a sign there must be something wrong, and it'll make up a story for why this stress response is occurring. It goes both directions. This is from the Journal of Behavior and Therapeutic Experimental Psychiatry, March 2017, quote, adopting an upright posture may increase positive affect, reduce fatigue, and decrease self-focus in people with mild to moderate depression. That is, you hold your body up, you feel better. You hold your head up, you feel better. You change how you breathe, you feel better. You can reduce the stress response by changing how you are navigating your body, how you're controlling your body physically. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. Okay, we're back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got GP Walsh coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll get to your calls this segment, 844-236-6010, 844-236-6010. You can purchase longevity products by calling 866-735-2470, Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com, and our Truth Nutritional Supplements at truthnourishment.com. This whole idea of how the body and the mind, the body and the brain, I should say, are connected, and the mind, body, brain, and mind are all linked together. Scientists call that embodied cognition. I'm going to have a lot more to say about embodied cognition in the coming days, and also continue talking about estrogen and cortisol. This is an interesting article from the journal Psychophysiology. Posture, place, and mood affects blood pressure. Who knew? The effect of posture was significant and explained a substantial proportion of within-subject variability. In other words, how people's blood pressure, whether it was high or low, or how high people's blood pressure was a factor of how they were holding their body. In other words, the same person would have a high blood pressure reading if they were holding their posture one way, and a lower blood pressure reading if they were holding their posture another way. The same thing is true about place and mood. Blood pressure is one of the major markers for the stress response. Blood pressure is one of the major markers of how the body is body is reading the brain, or what the brain is telling the body, if you prefer. Blood pressure goes up when we're under stress, and there's an epidemic of elevated blood pressure. And this is why I've been saying for years, for decades, if you want to lower your blood pressure, activate the relaxation response. Not a beta blocker, not a calcium channel blocker, not a vasodilator or ACE inhibitor. There's so many of these antihypertensive drugs. You're not going to hear that from the pharmacomedical model. You're not going to hear that from people selling the drugs. But it's just common sense. Everybody knows that when they're freaked out, their blood pressure goes up. Well, hello, if your blood pressure's up, that probably means you're freaked out to one degree or another, even if you don't feel it. A lot of times we dumb down our ability to perceive our freakouts, and our body is freaked out and we don't know it. We just feel lousy. Blood pressure and posture and place and mood are linked together, not just because it says so in psychophysiology, but because it's just common sense. Anyway, we'll have more to say about lowering cortisol, lowering estrogen, and how you can lose belly fat, and what you can do, what kinds of foods you can eat, and supplements you could take to help balance out the stress response. We'll do that in the coming days. On the bright side, time to hit the phones. 844-236-6010 is our number. Let's go to Deborah in New York. Good morning, Deborah. Do I have Deborah?
Hi.
Hi, Deborah. How's it going?
Okay. How are you?
I'm doing good. What's going on today?
Well, my son, he's 26, and I noticed that his hair is thinning on top, and it's really...
He's 26?
Yeah.
Is he lean and mean?
No.
Is he round and rotund?
Well, he was. He's 5. He used to be about 160, 70, and now he's...
Is his bone structure lean?
His bone structure, he's large boned.
Large boned. Okay, gotcha. He's too young for that in that case, 26. His blood sugar is probably way off. You say he's overweight, or he was overweight?
He wasn't, but now he is, because he's very...
Yeah, his blood sugar is probably totally jacked up. 26 is a bit early for that to start happening, although it does happen at all ages. But 26 is a little troubling if that's starting to occur. You got to get him. You got to get him to lose the body fat first of all. That's the most important thing. Assuming he doesn't have any digestive issues, and that's a big assumption because he probably does, just work on that second point of the triangle of disease, is keeping his blood sugar stable as best as possible. Now, he probably does have some digestive issues, and those need to be taken care of as well. And at this point, once the body fat starts to get this high, then you're dealing with an elevated stress response as well. So there's all kinds of things you're going to want to do to help relax the body, and some of the things we're talking about, posture and breathing, and we'll continue talking about in the next few days. But also meditation, cognitive behavioral therapy. Ever heard of this thing, CBT? Cognitive behavioral therapy is when you kind of use analysis on your emotional problems. use the brain to handle the emotions. That's something that he might want to do, especially if he tends to be smart. But you got to be careful with that because you can overthink.
Oh, that's but there's a problem. Yeah, we got that.
Yeah, he sounds like he'd be a smart guy and he'd be overthinking. So you got to be careful of that. And 26 is very young. The problem with 26 is you don't know how young you are. Do you remember being 26, Deborah?
I know. Yeah, you're right.
You don't realize how young you are when you're 26. So your tools are very unsophisticated. Is he depressed by any chance?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, actually. And you're going to have to really work on that level. That's where you're going to have to work, because the physical is a reflection of his thinking. You can't take care of the physical without taking care of the thinking, especially in a guy who's really smart and who has a very, very well-developed brain. It becomes really tricky. That's where I'd be focusing on, is the emotional kinds of things, much more than nutrition. Not that the mighty 90 essential nutrients are not important. They are, because it is kind of a circle. Sometimes depression is caused by nutritional deficiencies. But I would guess that he's got other things going on at this point, and that's where I'd be working. I'm going to let you go here, Deborah. I want to get a couple more calls in. Thank you so much for calling from New York. You got something else?
Yeah, I have a very high calcium in my blood.
That sounds like you might be breaking down a little bit. Are you dealing with any kind of bone issues, skeletal issues, anything like that? Any long-term inflammatory issues, health challenges?
I have RA.
Yeah, your body's breaking down is what it is. Well, here's the thing. That's a great question, because you would say I have a high calcium in the blood, and so you would think, well, I'm going to take potassium because that balances out calcium, or vitamin K because that acts as a calcium magnet. But the problem is you're breaking down, my dear. So you don't want to look at the symptom of the breakdown and say, how do I handle it? You want to look at the breakdown. RA is a sign of a long-term freaked out, long-term activated freaked out immune system. Okay? That's what RA is, rheumatoid arthritis. RA is a poster child for an immune system that is in grave distress, that is freaked out, right? So what freaks out the immune system is the enemy. We talked about this yesterday. We talk about it all the time. The enemy gets into the body. That represents a major freak out. You're not shooting things in through your blood, so you're probably eating the enemy. The enemy gets into the blood, and that's what causes all autoimmune diseases. Now, I kind of gave you the short story. I didn't tell you exactly how it happens. It involves something called circulating immune complexes and deposition of these CICs in various joints, and I didn't get into that. You don't need to know that, although it is fascinating. What you need to know is simply this. The immune system is the defense department. When you have an activated immune system, whether it's autoimmune or not, it was just an activated immune system, the enemy has gotten into the system. Does that make sense? Are you with me on this, Deborah? It's really important, and it's really simple, and it's so simple that if you don't do something about it at that level, it's not because you don't understand. It's because you don't want to. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. So that's really an important point. I don't mean to pick on anybody who's dealing with an autoimmune disease, but the simplicity of the mechanism, the simplicity and ease of the reversal process is such that if you have an autoimmune disease, and I tell you this mechanism, and you still have it, then there's a willingness that is not there. And I don't mean to beat anybody up, but I think it's really important that we recognize that. It's not because we can't do it, it's because we don't want to do it, and that's a big difference. Deborah, thank you so much for your call. Appreciate it. I didn't mean to pick on you. I hope you didn't hear it that way. It's a really important point. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got GP Walsh coming up at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. Back on The Bright Side. Thanks for joining us. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page at brightsideben.com. You can go to brightsideben.com, criticalhealthnews.com, or pharmacistben.com for videos and articles and the longevity products. And a Join the Team Now link that you can click on if you want to start yourself a longevity business. brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our skin health products. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, water, silicone oil, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products, truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. All right, I am very excited to have our next guest on. GP Walsh is just a super, super cool guy. He takes very abstract ideas and somewhat abstruse and esoteric, and makes them super simple and easy to understand, easy to apply. We've been talking about the stress response and dealing with the stress response now for a week or two, and GP's book is called The Tao of Allowing, and that's his whole thing. That's his whole game, is the Tao of Allowing, and there's a huge relationship between allowing and the stress response. Please welcome to the bright side, GP Walsh. What's up, GP?
Hey, Ben. So great to be here.
Yes, it's great to talk to you. It's an honor to talk to you. So we have been talking about the stress response, as I was just saying, and we've been talking about ways you can hold your body to deal with the stress response, foods you can eat and supplements you could take for the stress response, what it is, et cetera. And I've been fascinated with it myself, dis-ease being out of ease, as we say all the time. And so your book, The Tao of Allowing, it really got my attention. And not just your book, but everything you're about and everything you stand for. So let's just jump right into it. The Tao of Allowing. What is the Tao and what is allowing, and what does it have to do with us and our health?
Well, let's get right to it.
Yes, sir.
The term Tao is a Chinese term, and it simply means the way, or the way things actually are. And what it points towards is just the natural flow of the energy of life. And of course, the natural flow of the energy of life, when it is flowing, it's naturally, that's health. That's calmness, that's peace, that's the absence of stress and conflict, because you're flowing with nature. We get out of sync with that, and we develop these very high states, very subtle states of resistance, all of which are caused primarily by childhood trauma. But when we get in a state of resistance, or as I often refer to it, a defensive posture, that is the stress mechanism, period. The stress is the preparation of the body to defend itself in some way, run away or fight.
Physically, the posture.
Yes, physically. That's what it is. It's a physiological process in the system. So, when you're threatened by something, your body is either going to pump all of the energy to the muscles to run away. We call that fear, or it's going to pump all the energy to the muscles to fight, and that's what we call anger. They're very natural responses within the system. What makes it, now this is perfectly normal. I mean, if you watch a cat, right? Watch a cat get it. I've had many Zen masters in my life, and most of them have been cats. If you watch the way they interact, especially if they're threatened, they're all in. The back's up, the hair's standing, the claws come out, and then they run, right, or they fight. Usually they run. Most critters run, and you'll see them 2 minutes later. They're laying in the sun. They're licking themselves, right, completely discharged. The human being has the unique capacity for imagination, for anticipating a future and remembering the past. So, and then we project what the future is going to be like based on the past. And so the stress mechanism is when we get into a low level of the defensive posture, meaning the energy is being drained from the higher functions like creativity and intimacy and that sort of thing, to send to the body in order to protect itself. But what it's protecting itself is imaginary. It's the anticipation of what might happen. It's not what's actually happening in the moment.
And you can't be protected from that.
This is the place where we get stuck.
Because you can't be protected. You can't be protected from the imagination. You can't be protected from the imagination. It's not.
No.
It's not like it can go away. You can't do anything about it. It's always going to be there.
Correct. And there's always some really legitimate reason why this could happen, right? Even though if we were to look at it rationally, I love this phrase they say in the law of attraction circles, fear and it will appear. It's total nonsense. I mean, look at your own life. How many things you were afraid were going to happen didn't happen?
That's what Mark Twain said. I've died 1,000. What do you know that quote by Mark Twain? I've died 1,000 times. I've 999 things that didn't happen, or something. Do you know that quote?
Yes, exactly the case. And so what we have to learn how to do is, there's exercise and supplements and a lot of things that you can do to help the body. But to me, the primary thing is getting it out of the defensive posture. What does that mean? It means a refocusing of your attention away from the anticipation of the future. But that's such a deeply ingrained habit in us. It's not just a choice you can make intellectually and it'll happen. It's a retraining of the entire nervous system that has to take place so that it is not anticipating things going wrong, but is really very much in this present moment. And that's where the allowing part comes in. Because the disallowing of your own feelings puts you in a state of inner conflict. The drive to constantly fix yourself or to improve or to get better or to check things off the list. All of those put us in conflict with our own selves, which then cuts us off from the natural flow of life, which is always happening. So we end up living a life that's really not even living, and it's not really your life. It's completely within the imagination. Now, I don't want this to sound too abstract, but everybody's had the experience of, you meet somebody, you think, oh, they're the best thing in the whole world, and then a couple of days later you realize, oh my God, they're not at all. Our perception of things is shifting constantly. Well, the number one perception you have that creates your experience in the world is the perception you have of yourself. If you regard your inner world like you're broken, all this stuff has to be fixed, I'm a mess, what am I going to do, how do I get better? If that's how you regard yourself, you're in a constant fight with yourself. And that's why I often refer to it as the self-help treadmill, because you start from this premise that I'm broken and I got to be fixed, right? And now I'm doing all these things to fix myself, right? Because I'm not good enough as I am. Well, if you really think about it, all of our traumas, our difficulties, our emotional problems arise from the fact that you weren't accepted the way you actually were.
Oh, you were trying to be something different. You were trying to get
exactly what caused the problem in the first place, and that's why I call it the self-help treadmill. You just can't get off it. That's
an awesome thought. We got to take a break. We'll come back. On the bright side, we're talking to G.P. Walsh. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. Okay, we are back on the bright side talking to G.P. Walsh about his book, The Tao of Allowing, about the Tao of Allowing. GP, you said so many amazing things there. But before we get into them, tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you or get your products or get more information.
Well, the best way is just go to gpwalsh.com and start there. There's plenty of info about me, plus links to all the other stuff, because I've got dozens and dozens of courses and meditations, and in addition to the book.
Okay, great.
And if they want to get the book, just go to gpwalsh.com/Ben, because I set up a special link just for you.
Nice, and it's a great book. It's an awesome book. I highly recommend it. Good deal. Thank you so much, GP. So you said so many amazing things. I don't even know where I want to start here, but let's start with this idea of the perception of yourself. It's like you can't get to, if you have a perception of yourself as broken, you can't get to a place of fixed from a place of broken, right? Is that what you're kind of saying? There's an identity thing that has to happen.
Absolutely, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
At what point am I fixed?
Right. It's like, do you ever hear the saying?
I mean, this is, personal development, it's not, in spirituality, they're not supposed to be open-ended. They actually have an end goal, which is the realization of your original innocence, your true nature, what you really, really like. When you take away, what were you like before all of the trauma and the conditioning? There was an originally innocent, expressive, completely non-stressed child. And that's where I want to get us back to, because And it's even better when you get back there as a conscious adult who's actually been through the process, and not just, the children, they're naive. So we have to go, we have to get our butt kicked a bit. But then we rediscover, from the standpoint of maturity and strength, that original innocence, that original unbrokenness that is our true nature. And then life becomes a real celebration, and it is free from stress.
Is it like in The Wizard of Oz, where she goes the whole movie and then finds out she was at home the whole time, kind of thing?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. There's
a
an old
beautiful
Zen
quote from one of my favorite teachers, Nisargadatta, who says, "Having never left the house, you're asking for the way home."
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. I try to make this very, very practical, because when you're up to your eyeballs in alligators, it doesn't feel this way.
See,
so while I can explain it on that level, it becomes much more potent when you actually start practicing allowing. Because allowing is exactly the opposite of self-help. You're not trying to fix anything. You have no agenda. You do the one thing that should have happened to us all when we were children. We should have been simply listened to, and the entire range of our experience allowed, so that we can begin to drop the inner conflict we have with ourselves. When that happens, we begin to harmonize. The things that seem so horrible about us don't seem so horrible anymore. The things that we were trying to get rid of, we find are really beautiful characteristics of us. There's just this opening of the heart to self-acceptance and unconditional love. And the end result is that the nervous system receives the most significant message it can get, and that is, you are safe. And when you are safe, the stress disappears, because the stress is always a defense against some kind of danger. Now, if you're the one inflicting the danger on yourself because you're always trying to make yourself better, you're never acceptable as you are, you're only increasing the very thing you're trying to become free of. And so this practice of simply allowing, which is just being with your own feelings without judgment, without an agenda, without trying to fix it. And when you do it, immediately there's a sense of calm that begins very subtly, and some people very dramatically, begins to emerge all by itself. Because you don't have to acquire peace. You realize it. When the conflict's gone, what's left? Just the natural peace of your own being. And that's the genuine flow of life.
So when you say allowing, it's a special kind of allowing. You're not saying if somebody's being abused, for example, you're not saying allow that. When you say allowing, you mean allow feelings. You're talking about allowing your feelings, or allowing who you are to be who you are, to relax everything and just allow yourself to be. Is that what you're saying? You're not saying you're not saying allow everything to happen.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I hear that a lot. What, I suppose just be a doormat? No, absolutely not. That's not allowing. A matter of fact, if you were allowing, you wouldn't let yourself become a doormat, because you allow your own feelings, which would naturally go, hey, this is wrong. I'm out of here. So even our protective mechanism can get shut down, and we can be in relationships with people we shouldn't be in relationship with. So what I'm talking primarily is the self-rejection we all lay upon ourselves. I'm talking about inward allowing, what I like to call an inner reconciliation with your own feelings. And what the effect of that isn't to make you a doormat. On the contrary, it makes you powerful. You say yes when you mean yes, and you say no when you mean no, because you're not afraid of the reaction and the feelings you're going to have to the reaction. Sometimes you have to say no and it hurts, right?
Right. But sometimes you don't say no because you don't want to hurt.
Allow yourself to feel that.
Yeah.
Then you can do it. It's not like, we're trying to create, this sterile monochromatic life where we never feel anything. That's what we're trying to do. That's what distraction is. That's what addictions are. That's what a lot of self-help is to try to get this place where you're not really feeling. I want to feel the full range of life without resistance. And if you feel the full range of the feeling of life without resistance, there's no suffering.
Suffering and resistance are kind of tied together, no?
They're one and the same.
Suffering is resistance. That's the Tao of
Yes.
allowing. Is you get out of suffering when you stop resisting. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
The best way
Yeah.
to go to hell is to resist going to hell.
That's great. So suffering and pain are different. Suffering is the long-term resistance. Pain is like a quick thing. Is that correct? Does that make sense?
Yes. The suffering is a psychological and emotional reaction to experience.
Resisting experience.
In resisting it. Pain, and I've done this with all sorts of people, you bring somebody to the point where they completely accept their pain, the suffering is gone. And yes, sometimes the pain is still there. Sometimes it goes away. Because it was actually the resistance that was creating it in the first place. But what happens is that there's a clarity, right? Because we have the power to be, and the inner resources, all of us do. We were born with it. It's inherent. You don't have to acquire them to be completely present and resourceful in every circumstance that happens. And that's what awakens when you simply allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling in the moment. You find that those feelings become very trustworthy. They're brilliant at reading what has to happen. And if some pain is in the body, you'll have direct access to the wisdom of the body that knows exactly what's needed.
So from a fundamental level, we can handle anything that comes our way, but we don't know it, and that's why we suffer. We try to push it off instead of handling it. And that's what causes
instead of handling, we get stuck in a position, and we try to, we want to be the hammer. When you're a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. You don't give a massage with a hammer. We've just been cut off from the vastness of our inner resources because of this training into resistance and this very narrow state of mind and sense of identity we've all been saddled with.
This is so important. Your stuff is amazingly important work. I didn't even get to talk about a couple things I wanted to touch about. You talked about childhood trauma. I found that completely fascinating because a lot of this comes from poor parental skills, I imagine, or non skills. I guess you'd say. And we're all subject to that.
Because it doesn't do any good to blame mom and dad.
No, they're not blaming, but it's there.
They're just acting out exactly what happened to them, and on and on. And a part of this is necessary. And this is what, when you look at it in terms existentially, when you look at it in terms of what it really takes to bring somebody to full spiritual maturity, it doesn't matter how good the house is, your home was, right? Some are really extreme and abusive. Mine was, right? And others are actually pretty good parents. But there's no such thing as a child that gets out of childhood with being totally accepted the way they are. And therefore, we all have these conditioned patterns, these conditioned self-denial that have to be worked through.
GP, we're flat out of time. I want you to come back because I got a lot more I want to talk to you about, and I didn't get a chance to touch on a lot of the stuff I want my listeners to hear. gpwalsh.com, correct? gpwalsh.com and /Ben if you want to buy the book, The Tao of Allowing. GP, we'll definitely have you back on here real soon, and I'll be in touch with you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. GP Walsh, the book is The Tao of Allowing. Thank you. The Tao of Allowing. And thanks for listening to The Bright Side, friends. Have yourselves a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.